Hello students and the other viewers. This is Eteta from Morogoro, Tanzania. My name is Chiku Ghaimo. I am teaching English language. Today I want to show you on how to answer literature questions. First of all, dear students, you are supposed to know the objective of this. I expect you by the end of this session, I expect you to be able to use skills for answering different questions on literature. Now, before you start, when you come across with a question on literature, dear students, you are expected to pay attention, or you will be needed to consider the following important things before you start attempting those questions. First of all, you will be required to read the question very carefully before starting attempting it. After that, you have to identify and pay attention to the keywords that have been used in that particular question. And also, you will be needed to paraphrase or to state a question in your own word to see if you can be able to answer it. The aim here of paraphrasing is to check if you have understood that particular question. For example, if you come across with that question, analyze the source of conflict in the two novels that you have studied in this section, giving 4 points from each reading. How to paraphrase such a question. In this question, you will be required to say that to analyze the causes of conflict or the causes of misunderstanding in the two novels. Here, the word conflict have been changed, and we have used the word misunderstanding. That means you have paraphrased that question. You have used your own word, and this shows that you have understood such a particular question. After that, after paraphrasing that question, dear student, you will be required to write an outline of your answer. You have to write your points aside. That means what is supposed to be in the introduction, how you can introduce such a question in the introductory paragraph, and what is supposed to be included in the main body, and how you can conclude such a question. So these things should be written aside, should be put in mind before starting attempting such a question. The format of an essay question. All essay questions should have 3 important parts. The first part is introduction, the introductory part. In the next part is the main body, and your essay should be supposed to have a conclusion. Coming to the NECTA question, that of 2018, question number 14, it states that analyze the source of conflict in the two novels that you have studied in this section, giving 4 points from each reading. The question states that analyze the source of conflict in the two novels that you have studied in this section, giving 4 points from each reading. Dear student, when answering this question, you are supposed to define the keywords in the introductory paragraph. Now, when you look at the question, the keyword might be the conflict, because the question needs you to show the conflict from the two novels. So you have to make us know that you know the meaning of the conflict. So you have to define it, conflict, as a keyword. For example, you can say that conflict refers to the misunderstanding or disagreement between two or more opposing sides. dear student, it is not necessary for you to define keywords. Some question, this depend upon the demand of the question. Some question might not need you to define key terms. You will be in some situation, you will be required maybe to give the background information that should be put in the introductory part. Sometimes you will be required to maybe to agree with the statement or to disagree with the statement. That means you have to show it in the introductory paragraph. Another thing, dear student, is that when you come to that, still in the introductory part, after defining the key terms or show your position on how you are going to answer that question, the next thing in the introductory part is to show the list of reading, the list of reading that you are going to use in that question. You have to identify the books that you are going to use. It should be shown in the introductory part. In this question, I'm going to use Past Like a Shadow. In Past Like a Shadow, the author portrayed the source of conflict as follows. The author portrayed a source of conflict as follows. Now, we are going to the main body. When saying this, after identifying the list of reading that you are going to use, the next part, you have to start with the first one. As it is shown, Past Like a Shadow. Here you are going to show on how the author portrayed the source of conflict. Number one, it is the issue of superstition. What is superstition? You need to tell us, what do you understand by the word superstition? This is said to be the situation of believing in supernatural powers or believing in ancestors. It's a custom of some society. Now, how this led to conflict, you have to show it in that particular paragraph. Example, Vicky is in conflict with her husband just because Vicky was not be able to get a baby. Therefore, her husband asked Vicky to go to the witch doctor so that they can help them to have a baby. Something that was not agreed by Vicky. This caused the conflict. And the source of that conflict is the superstition. So this point should show how that particular point, that is conflict, within the same point. So another thing that has led to conflict, that causes conflict, is cruelty. In this point, Adieri from Past Like a Shadow was in conflict with his family just because the man was so harsh. He was mistreating his own family at the point that they came into conflict. That conflict, in this point, you have to show that this conflict has caused by the behavior of this man, being cruel to his own family. Another point is, unfaithfulness in marriage. Now, when you come to this point, you have to show us how unfaithfulness causes a conflict. Unfaithfulness is shown by Adieri. A man has married a Moti, but he has established sexual affairs with other women. Something that led into conflict. That is the behavior of that man, who is a womanizer. So the conflict between Adieri and his wife was caused by the behavior of that man. Another point, another behavior or another source of conflict is drunkenness. Drunkenness, the behavior of excessive use of alcohol. This led to the conflict between Adieri and his wife Amoti. Okay, dear student, turning to another reading, that is Unanswered Cries. The author analyzes the source of conflict as follows. The first one is female genital mutilation. Female genital mutilation, that is an act of removing a part of a female sexual organ. This behavior causes conflict among people in the Nigerian society. A certain group of people were against such behavior, while the other group were supporting such a behavior. For example, Makalai, Yapose, and the other Bondo women were supporting this outdated custom, while Dr. Kiroma, Ade Jones, and the Oya are against it. That is a source of conflict. Disloyalty between lovers. The conflict emerged here between Olabis and her ex-boyfriend Eddie. At the court of law, Eddie decided to reveal the secret that he had sexual affairs with Olabis, something that was not was not an agreement. So this behavior of disloyalty cause or is a source of conflict. Another source of conflict, dear viewers, is broken relationship. The broken relationship between the parents. I can cite an example of Makalai and Ade Jones. This brings serious conflict between themselves because every person is having a personal affair or a personal interest with the child Olabis. So something that led into conflict. By conclusion, dear students, you are supposed to show your position. Now, after discussing different points, you have to show your, you have to state your position. How do you see the problems being expressed in the main body? For example, you can say that the source of conflict should be, conflict should be discouraged at all costs because it contributed much to poor upbringing of children, as it happens to Atoki due to the behavior of his father and Olabis due to the behavior of her parents. From the two books, that is Parsley Like a Shadow and the Unanswered Cries. That is the end of this question. Coming to another question, dear students, this is a NECTA question from in 2019. It is question number 11. It is said that using characters from two novels you have studied, and under this section, using characters from two novels you have studied under this section, analyze body traits which should not be adapted in Tanzanian context. Provide 3 points from each novel. That is the question class. As I have insisted you in the first part, in the first question, dear student, you are supposed to reread the question. After understanding the question, you go directly to the introductory part. In this question, you have to define the keyword. That is a character. You have to tell us who is a character, and also the question need you to state the body traits that should not be, the body trait that should not be adapted to, Tanzanian context. So you have to make us aware who is a character and what are these body traits. A character here is said to be an imaginary person or animals or anything used by the author in order to convey the intended message to the reader. That is a character. And body traits here that you are supposed to show them, this refers to those unacceptable behavior practiced in a particular society. For example of these body traits is mistreatment of children. Another body trait is drunkardness. These are some of the body traits. After showing us, still in this introductory part, dear student, you have to identify the reading that you are going to use. Here in this question, I'm going to use a book, Pass Like a Shadow. It's a novel, Pass Like a Shadow, written by Bernard Mapalala. And another book is Unanswered Cries, which is written by Osman Conte. That is an introductory paragraph. Coming to the main body, in answering this question, you are going to show the body traits. You have to analyze those body traits that should not be adapted in Tanzanian context. Now, taking Pass Like a Shadow, dear student, the author analyzes the body traits which should not be adapted in Tanzanian context as follows. The first one is the drunkardness. That is point number 1. Drunkardness is the tendency or the behavior of taking too much alcohol. The behavior is practiced by Adieri, who has been drinking every day in order to overcome his emotional stress. As a result, the money fails to provide the necessary needs to his family. That is the body trait. We have defined what the meaning of that body trait. Also, you have to show us who has as a character who has been assigned that role of showing that body trait. Here we have seen Adieri as a character was used by has been used by the author to carry that particular message to the reader. Another body trait, dear viewers, is prostitution. It's a body behavior. What is the meaning of prostitution? It's the situation of practicing sex for commercial purposes. That is the meaning of that body trait. It is practiced by the behavior was assigned to Vicky, who engaged herself in prostitution in order to get her basic needs. This behavior exposes her in the risk of getting pregnancy. The last sentence shows that why that particular trait should be discouraged. It's because to its negative effect. Here, still in the same point, you have to show why this practice, why this behavior, or why this trait should be discarded. It is because of its negative effect. Practicing prostitution might lead someone to contract HIV, lead or that killing disease. Another point is raping. Raping, what is raping? It's just to force someone to have sex against her will. That is a behavior. To force someone to have sex against her will. Example of that behavior or the rule assigned to that particular character is John, who raped Abuki, something that put her in the risk of getting pregnancy and HIV. Still in the same point, you have showed. Make sure that you show that trait and you define to us what is the meaning of that trait and still show who has assigned by the author to carry that role. And lastly, you have to show that that trait is bad by showing the negative effect. Here, the raping is very bad just because someone can get pregnant and sometimes can be infected by HIV. Another point, another book that have to be used in order to support the statement is unanswered cries. Here the author portrays the body trait as follows. 1. Betrayal. Betrayal, the meaning of betrayal is that is the act of doing something against it to an agreement. That is the trait. An act of doing something against an agreement. The particular trait has been played by Pa Amadu, who was given corruption by Makalai. And they agreed that Pa Amadu have to stop all of this. The girl who was escaping to be circumcised, but Pa Amadu betrays Makalai by taking corruption from Olabis and let the girl go away. That behavior of betraying it should be discouraged. It is stated as a bad trait. It should be discouraged. And the effect of betrayal is sometimes it might deny someone to get his or her right. That is the negative effect of this behavior. Another trait or another behavior that should not be adapted in Tanzanian context is promiscuity and infidelity. What is the meaning of these words? That behavior of having many sexual partners. It is practiced by Ade Jones. Ade Jones, apart from having Oya and Yamide, he has such behavior of having many sexual partners. The behavior is very bad because it might put someone into the risk of getting deadly disease like HIV. That's why Oya was always in conflict. They were quarreling just because of this practice, of this behavior of Ade Jones, having many sexual partners. So that trait should be discouraged to Tanzania, in Tanzanian context, just because of the reasons given. Another, the last thing that we can, another body trait that should not be discouraged, that should not be adapted in our contemporary society is fornication. You need to tell us what fornication is. That is situation of having sex before marriage. That is fornication. It's the behavior that has been practiced by Edward Cole and Olabis. At their young age, these two children were practicing sex. The behavior should not be, should not be practiced because it might increase the number of street children. So, fornication should be discouraged at all cost. That is 3 points that according to the demand of the question. I have showed you how you can state the body trait. You have to identify the particular character who has carried that particular trait, and you need to show, because we have stated that this is a body trait. Dear students, you need to show us how bad it is by showing the negative effect of that body trait. Now, you can conclude such question as follows. All body traits should be discouraged to Tanzanian context as they affect all affairs of life. The above behavioral traits, for example, Adieri died in poor condition because of the habit of, because of drinking habit. The man was not able to save his income. At the end, he died poor. Another thing is Vicky. Due to the behavior or due to superstitious belief, going to the which doctor? Vicky get infection and later on he died. So I can say that in the conclusion paragraph, you need to show us your stand. How do you feel? What is your opinion about the points that we have discussed? That is the end of my presentation, dear viewers and students. See you next time. You were with Madam Ghaimo from Eteta Morogoro. Thank you very much.